So let's turn now to David Lefkowitz to talk more about what lies ahead for the market next week. He is the Senior Equity Strategist at UBS Wealth Management Research. Welcome back. Nice to see you again.
Thanks for having me, Sue.
All right, I'm already exhausted. there's so much on the market's plate next week. And Bob outlined that very well for us. But if you had to prioritize the events of next week, which would be most important to you?
I think for me, it's three things. It's going to be continued information about corporate profits, and we'll get the continuation of earnings season. We're about halfway done, so we have a pretty good handle on how the earnings season is shaping up, but we still want to hear some key companies that Bob was talking about and get a final reading on earnings season. The Fed obviously is very important. Look, what the Fed does has a big influence on the cost of capital, the cost of money, the cost of borrowing. So what the Fed does has a big influence on the economy, so that's going to be very important as well. And then I'll be especially looking at the manufacturing sentiment survey. That is a leading indicator for the markets and has been a market driver recently, so that's going to be pretty important as well.
What are you expecting to see in that report? I assume you're going to be looking for any further slowdown in the economy and or manufacturing.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Sue. I think there's been some sentiment that the soft patch that we've been seeing in global manufacturing might be bottoming a bit. I think that message came through from the earnings reports that we got in the industrial patch. Some of the weaker earnings results ended up in stocks actually moving higher on a weaker outlook. So that's some indication that investors are looking for a bit of a bottoming process in some of that manufacturing data. And that's going to be important to see if it does come through in that survey that comes out next Friday.
If I can take you back to the Fed, the market is expecting a quarter-point cut, but the language of the Fed chief has been very important lately. What are you expecting to hear from him?
Yeah, not only, I think it's a good point, Sue. I mean, not only is the cut itself going to be important, but I think the Fed is going to be a little bit at potentially a turning point. The way that Fed Chair Powell has been characterizing this is that these cuts that they've done, this would be the third cut of a quarter point each, have been insurance cuts, trying to make sure the economy avoids some of the risks out there around trade, around Brexit, around the slowdown in manufacturing. And it might be possible that the Fed is going to signal that they've taken enough insurance cuts for now, and they may stop and pause a bit and be more data dependent and seeing if the data comes in as they expect, that they may not have to cut any further. So that's going to be a very keen focus for the markets.
All right, David, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for your perspective. David Lefkowitz with UBS Wealth Management Research.